Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I integrate it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's pretty much based on money, the system here.
It is.
Yeah.
The system is completely based on money.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson has never been one to play by Hollywood's rules. From the early 2000s to now, Gibson's been a thorn in the side of an industry that demands conformity. Like the warrior he portrayed in Braveheart, he's come face to face with these powerful forces time and time again. This time it's against Hollywood's relentless push for wokeness in its media. And while the industry has tried to shun him multiple times, he's only come back stronger.
A little under the scrutiny of the media, saying things, taking pictures and stuff. How does someone live with that and not feel like you want to go and knock someone's face for what they wrote?
If you ask most people what their number one fear is, what do you think it is? Most people's number one fear is public humiliation. Okay? I don't give a anymore. I'm not afraid of it.
Gibson's been through the ringer, blacklisted, criticized, and cast out by the very people who once celebrated him. Yet he's still here, calling out the hypocrisy of an industry more interested in ticking boxes than fostering creativity. In a 6-year-old interview with John Lithgow, he calls out Hollywood for the skeletons that it keeps in its own closet.
It's a big upheaval. I mean, I've never seen Hollywood quite so shaken by anything.
It's a little late,
So we'll see how it all shakes down. Hopefully it clears the air a little bit.
While others stay quiet to protect their careers, Gibson's never held back. His outspoken defiance against Hollywood isn't new, but his ability to keep fighting, despite every effort to cancel him, is what sets him apart. With woke culture invading all facets of our lives, the focus is now on political correctness, social activism, and making sure every movie checks the right boxes. But when a film like Sound of Freedom hit theaters in 2023, it didn't just tell a story. It exposed the secrets of one of the darkest realities of our time: child trafficking. This isn't some fictional Hollywood drama. It's an issue affecting countless innocent lives. The truth is that the film hits a nerve, and Hollywood didn't like it. But Mel Gibson does.
most disturbing problems in our world today is human trafficking, and particularly the trafficking of children. Now, the first step in eradicating this crime is awareness. Go see Sound of Freedom.
And certain parts of the media were clearly not happy about it. They rolled out the usual criticisms, pretending to be outraged over the film's so-called problematic themes. Real question was, why did a film about such a serious human rights violation provoke this much hostility?
Sound of Freedom is smashing it at the box office and is being attacked continually.
The truth is that these attacks were never about factual accuracy. They were about fear. Fear that the film outside the Hollywood system could resonate so strongly with audiences. The media tried to throw everything they could at the Sound of Freedom to undermine it. But none of it mattered. The film brought attention to a real issue, one that the industry had largely ignored. And so what if its star, Jim Caviezel, has some views that are deemed too controversial by some? Plenty of famous celebrities have eccentric opinions, and yet no one has demanded their movies to be dismissed. So what if the movie stretched the based on a true story label? Hollywood has been doing that for decades. The real issue was never about the film's authenticity. It was that it dared to bring to the audiences a topic that didn't fit into the cookie-cutter narrative Hollywood preferred. The fact is, Sound of Freedom represents something bigger. It's part of a growing movement of films that are challenging the status quo, proving that there's an audience for stories that don't follow the Hollywood agenda. The media might try to discredit it, but the more they push, the more it becomes clear that they're the ones out of touch. As the quality of their own content continues to degrade, films like Sound of Freedom are stepping up and delivering not just important messages, but quality filmmaking that audiences are desperately craving. Hollywood might think it controls the narrative, but audiences have always been smarter than they're given credit for. Despite the noise, people saw through the media smears and embraced the Sound of Freedom for what it was. A film that took risks and told a story that truly mattered. Its success didn't come from playing it safe or pandering to the usual Hollywood formulas. It came from daring to address real issues head-on. Hollywood's attempts to tear down films that challenge the norm aren't new. Back in 2004, Mel Gibson faced the same kind of backlash with The Passion of the Christ. a film he produced, directed, and co-wrote.
No, there have been a lot of obstacles thrown in the way. You know, there's a lot of, what would you call it, poltergeist activity or something, I don't know. A lot of things thrown
Spiritual
away.
stuff happened.
And I understand that it's the other realm warring. I believe that that's a very real thing. And I've taken steps wherever I can to sort of like put on some armor.
After the release, the film was met with a flood of completely baseless accusations and fear-mongering criticism, hoping to scare others away from making bold, risk-taking movies. The backlash was so intense that it pushed Gibson to work on the fringes of Hollywood for a time. But despite their best efforts, The Passion of the Christ went on to become a monumental success, raking over $600 million globally and claiming the title of the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time back then. Now, with a much-anticipated sequel, The Passion of the Christ, Resurrection, on the horizon, Gibson is preparing to push the envelope even further.
Yeah, sooner now, because what I had to, it is such a massive undertaking that you can't do it lightly and you can't do it quickly. You have to really consider what it is that you need to show in order to be poignant. It can't be linear. You have to have many things to juxtapose against one another, even from different time periods, in order to illustrate what something means in a more full way.
This new film is expected to spark just as much debate, if not more, than its predecessor. It dives deep into Christian themes, something Hollywood often avoids or waters down entirely. In a landscape that typically sidelines religious content, Gibson's fearless embrace of these themes sets him apart from his peers. It's clear he's not concerned with staying within the lines, and based on his track record, it's safe to say he's not worried about the backlash either.
You can't get mad. You can't get mad. You can't let it get you, because you have to make a deal with everyone else, and it's almost unspoken that you are going to be over at some point by people who you may have done something nice for.
Gibson's willingness to create a film that dives headfirst into controversy has earned him the respect of other giants in the industry, like Robert Downey Jr.
Actually, I asked Mel to present this award to me for a reason, because when I couldn't get sober, he told me not to give up hope, and he urged me to find my faith. It didn't have to be his or anyone else's, as long as it was rooted in forgiveness.
Gibson isn't your average filmmaker. He's the one who stands up to Hollywood's pressures and says, "I'll do it my way." While the industry keeps putting out content that checks all the politically correct boxes, Gibson continues to focus on stories that matter, stories that challenge audiences, push boundaries, and yes, sometimes provoke. But isn't that the very purpose of art? We saw Mel using this same approach with Hacksaw Ridge. It's the story of a religious man named Desmond Doss, who saves 75 soldiers during World War II without firing a single shot. The film was raw, emotional, and didn't shy away from the brutal realities of war. It wasn't the polished, feel-good type of story Hollywood often prefers. But that's precisely why it resonated so deeply with audiences, and why Mel doesn't want Hollywood to take any credit for it either.
And being back in Hollywood, in the Hollywood kind of game, is that
Well, it's
good?
not really Hollywood. I mean, this is a made-in-Australia film. In fact, very few films are made here anymore. You talk about Hollywood, I mean, where is it really? I mean, it's kind of, there's a sign up there on the hill, but it doesn't really exist. It's this kind of nebulous thing that people apply to anything. This is an independent film made a world away, upside down at the bottom of the earth in the Antipodes, you know, and we bring back the bacon here, I guess. So I guess everything goes through a kind of a filter here. It's like a kidney. Hollywood's like a kidney.
Hacksaw Ridge earned Gibson another Oscar nomination, but more importantly, it once again proved that people want real, unfiltered stories. They aren't looking for narratives that have been sanitized to fit within Hollywood's politically correct mold. They're looking for stories that strike a chord, that make them think, that feel authentic. At this point, it's undeniable. Mel Gibson has become a disruptive force in Hollywood. He's not afraid to push against the grain. And in an industry that rewards conformity, that's a rare thing to see. What makes Gibson stand out isn't just his willingness to confront the uncomfortable truths, but his ability to keep going despite the backlash. It's clear that he's not content with safe, sanitized storytelling. He's determined to make films that challenge, provoke, and sometimes disturb, because that's where art lives. Gibson's work doesn't just cater to an audience looking for entertainment, it speaks to those who feel left behind by Hollywood's increasingly narrow focus. His films are for people who want stories with substance, stories that matter. But this isn't just about one man going against the tide. It's about the bigger conversation Gibson's work has sparked. What do we really want from our art? Is it entertainment that fits neatly into pre-approved categories? Or is it something that forces us to think differently, maybe even uncomfortably? Is Mel Gibson a visionary filmmaker leading a crucial cultural shift? Or is he simply out of touch with the changing face of Hollywood? For more woke culture, click the video on the screen.